What is up there, everybody? Sea of Red Sports here with yet another amazing top 10 college football teams, and I'm here with my amazing guest, Red River Aviation. He is an Oklahoma Sooner fan, and I am a Nebraska Husker fan. So, with that out of the way, let's get started with our Week 9 top 10 teams. And we're going to start by showing our top 4 teams here real quick, because we have some things to talk about already right away. And you can already tell by these 4 teams that we are going to have a little bit of a disagreement this week. And I think this is going to be interesting because we're going to come at this from slightly different points of views on who should be ranked where. And I think that will be very interesting because I think our 2 different point of views represent the majority of college football fans. So, I have Alabama 1, Clemson Tigers 2, Ohio State Buckeyes 3, Georgia Bulldogs 4. You have Clemson 1, Bama 2, Notre Dame 3, Ohio State 4. So I'm going to explain my rankings here real quick for top 4, and then you can explain yours. So I have Alabama over Clemson this week. This is the first time I've actually put Alabama over Clemson this entire season, just because Clemson's looked so amazing. However, the Clemson Tigers have shown some mistakes, some little canaries in the mine, which could show up in a big game later. Probably won't show up in the regular season because no one's really good enough in the ACC to beat them. However, some of these issues I'm noticing could show up in the playoff, and that is that they are beginning to turn over the ball. Now, this was an issue with the Clemson Tigers earlier in 2019 season, but we're almost halfway through the ACC schedule, and they're starting to show these problems. Both Travis Etienne and Trevor Lawrence turned over the ball in that incredible 73-7 victory over Georgia Tech last week. However, they did quickly clean that up. However, they once again both turned over the ball again this week against a pretty terrible Syracuse team. However, Clemson, even on the day when they show up with their C- game, still destroyed Syracuse. That's just how good this Clemson team is. I have Obama. I have Alabama over Clemson because I really like the dominant performances that they've played against Georgia and against Tennessee. 2 teams that are both very capable of running the ball. And basically the Bama Crimson Tide decided, nope, we're not going to let you do that at all. The defense has really improved, which was my one main concern with Alabama. Now, they did lose Jalen Waddle to an injury. However, it's not as if they don't have plenty of other great kick returners as they saw in the Tennessee game. I don't remember who the new guy is, but he's still able to return balls for 30 yards. It's not like they're going to necessarily miss him too much. So I think Alabama is the number 1 team for now. I just like what I'm seeing out of the Bama team a little bit more. And then Ohio State, I have 3. They had a really dominant performance over Nebraska, 52-17. I will be having an in-depth review of that game, probably coming out about the same time this video does. And the conclusion is that Ohio State is exactly what we thought they'd be. They have an outstanding passing attack. Justin Fields and Chris Olave is one of the most deadly duos in the entire country. Should mention the run game was a little bit disappointing. However, so was Alabama and Clemson's run game the very first week they played. Trey Sermon and Master T each had less than 100 yards rushing. Now, that appears to also be because Nebraska's defense decided they were going to force Ohio State to throw the ball and to earn it in the air. So we did a pretty good job as a Husker defense of stopping Ohio State's pretty explosive run. We'll have to see how that works out. And also another concerning spot for Ohio State is that their offensive line looked a little bit out of sorts. Now, of course, it is just week 1. Ohio State still destroyed Nebraska, not even close, to be honest. Once near the end of the second quarter and beyond, Ohio State just dominated. And I think we're going to see that happen in upcoming weeks. But really, this is one of the most polished games we saw week 1 in the Big Ten. Every other game, I should say, had some issues where somebody was unprepared, and we're going to talk about one of those games in particular here. I have the Georgia Bulldogs at 4, just simply because, well, they're very good still. I still think they would beat everybody else ranked below them. That's why I have them at 4th. Obviously, they lost to Alabama pretty badly, but then again, who wouldn't? And Georgia is still very good. They're still good enough to beat 99% of college football teams out there very convincingly. They have great defense. Offensively, they really need to find a better quarterback than Stetson Bennett. They need to get JT Daniels up and running as quickly as possible, or else they might have some issues further down the road. But I really like this Georgia team. I have them ranked obviously higher than Red River Aviation over here does, and that's just simply because I like Georgia to beat those teams, and I do a little bit more merit-based versus he does more ranking. Who did you win? Resume. Did you lose? Did you win? That sort of thing. So with that being said, and that really long-winded speech, Red River Aviation, why did you put Notre Dame at number 3? That's what I'm most curious about.
I put Notre Dame at number 3 because they have played now 5 games. Their defense has really settled in, and they're one of the best in the country, in my opinion. And I think they're starting to get some things figured out on offense, rather. I think, obviously, Pittsburgh is not very good, but still 45 points is 45 points, and that's a lot. I just feel like Notre Dame's really got things figured out on defense, like I said, and I just, with their resume at the current time and just building on stuff, I really like where they are at the current time. So I decided to put them ahead of Ohio State at the current time, and Ohio State kind of struggled, like you said, to not only run the ball, but their defense took a couple minutes to get settled in, or I would say rather a half. But besides that, Ohio State did look pretty good. Justin Fields is a really nice quarterback, and I just thought that Notre Dame at the current time just has the better resume and is looking a little more sharper, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
All right. Would you say that Ohio State looked more prepared week 1 than 99% of other college football teams? I mean, they, other than maybe the first half, they really didn't ride the struggle bus at all.
Yeah. Besides the run game, but yeah.
Yeah, and again, I think it's mostly because Nebraska
focused on it.
Nebraska focused on it. I think also Nebraska is actually a better team than people give them credit for. I'm just going to give you a little bit of a spoiler warning, but I have picked Nebraska to upset Wisconsin this weekend. We're going to get to that game here.
Gone, so that's a big deal.
We're going to get to that game here a little bit further down the road. I'm going to do a separate preview and prediction video on it, but that was my preseason pick, actually, for Nebraska beat Wisconsin. I'm sticking with that. But this win for Ohio State, I think it's going to look better if the road goes farther down. And with that being said, I think you had a good explanation for why I have Notre Dame 3. I'm still not quite as sold on this Notre Dame team. As we pull up our teams 5 through 7, I have Notre Dame 5, Oklahoma State 6, Cincy at 7. You have Oklahoma State at 5, Cincy 6, Georgia at 7. That pretty much is our top 7, with just kind of different order there. Notre Dame, I'm still slightly concerned about the really embarrassing wins over Florida State and Louisiana. No, wait, not Louisiana. Louisville. Now, of course, both those teams were really hungry for a win at the time, and obviously Florida State did end up going out and knocking off a top 5 North Carolina team the following week. We will talk about North Carolina here a little later, but Notre Dame's still a good team. They're still worthy of being a top 5 team for now. Oklahoma State, they have a big game against Texas this weekend. Obviously, they played a pretty good game against Iowa State, and
really good game.
Yeah, and really that game looked more like an SEC game than most of the SEC games this year have been.
You got to give it to OK State's defense, man. You have to.
Yeah,
for real.
They finally sewed up in this game, and it'll be interesting to see how they play against Texas. I do actually think the game against Texas could be an upset. In fact, I'd actually pick it right now to be an upset. But Oklahoma State is looking to be the best team in the Big 12 right now. And even if they lose to Texas, I don't see any reason for them to not be the best team.
I don't know. If you don't mind if I talk about it, I really don't know. Because if OU's defense shut down Texas for the majority of the game, and OSU's defense is playing like this, and OU's defense couldn't do crap versus Iowa State, with OSU's offense, you really can't tell me that OSU's going to – you think Texas is going to win. I hate to pick between the two rivals, but I mean, like, OSU's looking like the better team by a lot. They're looking like the best team in the Big 12 by a long shot, man.
That is fair, but I mean, it is the Big 12. Crazier things have happened than that this year.
Right, but I mean, just from looking at it from a resume standpoint, it's pretty obvious that OSU is very for real. They've played super nice defense in all 4 of their games.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
I hate to
that
be
is
nice
fair.
to Oklahoma
I just
State, but
have to
there is
pick
no doubt
Oklahoma
about it.
State to lose a game because I think they will. I think they'll drop a game they really shouldn't. And I think this
Oklahoma,
Texas game or the Oklahoma game, I think the
Oklahoma,
following week is going to be the one.
Oklahoma,
Yeah, Oklahoma could
Oklahoma,
be it. I know you're a Sooner
Oklahoma.
fan, so you're picking that one.
I just know we got our gut feeling, man. I know that we can beat that team. It's not 2014, or I would pick OSU to win.
That is true. So,
Don't even start on 2014.
yeah, so do you want to go into the spiel about why we both believe that Cincinnati is for real? I've had my doubts about this team, but they really showed up.
So I'm sure you guys, if you guys saw last week's game, or the last two videos rather, I should say, for top 10, you guys have known I've been pretty big on Cincinnati, and I thought in SMU as well. And I kind of picked a really close game, but I said slightly in last week's video that I said I was slightly leaning towards SMU having a chance to win the game. I probably called it. But Cincinnati came out and they thumped. I about to use the no word, but they absolutely thumped SMU. Bad. Really bad. And SMU is a pretty good team. They beat a really good Memphis team. And by golly, they completely rocked them like 42-13. So Cincinnati's for real, man. I'm telling you, that game, it wasn't even close, dude. Cincinnati, honestly, could go compete with any of those teams in top 6, and I think it would be within 2 scores. They're by far looking like the best group of 5 team. Their offense is electric, and their defense is settling in really nice now. Like we talked about in the last couple of videos, they took some time to settle in, but man, they are now looking really, really nice. They had to postpone that Tulsa game, which that one will be interesting still, though. They got Memphis this week. It doesn't get easier. That Memphis team, they beat UCF, and I'm really eager to see that game. I don't think it's upset worthy, especially after SMU beat Memphis, and now Cincinnati crushed SMU, but I still think that it's something to watch. Offense may be really big in this game. You could be looking at a game in the 40s, but probably the 30s if I had to guess. But I do think Cincinnati will be able to win by about 2 touchdowns, about like 38-24 or something like that.
Yeah, I had concerns about Cincinnati really not beating teams as well as they should have. That was my reason why I didn't have them in top 10 last week, but the showing that they put up against SMU made me believe that they are for real. Somebody has to pick up this Luke Fickell coach because some big team is going to be calling for him. And I don't think it's just going to be a South Carolina. I think it's going to be a big name school. Somebody like, say, Texas, for example. It wouldn't surprise me if Texas picks up Luke Fickell in the next couple of years.
No doubt about that.
Alright, so next up we move to a slightly controversial part of our list. I have Michigan up at 8. You have BYU up at 8. We'll get to BYU here in a second, and I'm going to defend Michigan here for a second because I was incredibly impressed by Michigan's performance against Minnesota. They beat Minnesota 49-24. It wasn't really even close. And I think the reason why is Michigan came prepared to play football. Minnesota has a couple of issues related to the virus and some off-the-field distractions they have. I do think, though, Minnesota is for real this year. I think they'll have another good season, just like last year. But I think the thing is Michigan is just so much better. And they seem to have solved their number one glaring weakness on the team, which was the quarterback position. They've been great defensively under Jim Harbaugh. They've had great running backs, great skilled players, but they haven't been able to get the linchpin figured out, and that is the quarterback. They finally have one in Joe Milton. And I think Michigan's going to be great this year. They beat a legit Minnesota team 49-24. I really want to see what this Michigan team can do when they play Penn State. They should have a pretty easy win against Michigan State this weekend. Michigan State got beat by Rutgers. I actually picked Rutgers to beat.
Oh, God. After all the crap that Rutgers went through in the offseason, that's beyond embarrassing. I thought Michigan State had problems too, but I may be wrong on that.
Michigan State mostly just has nobody who's actually skilled. They have no good quarterbacks. The defense also so that they're not that great this year. I actually liked Rutgers' quarterback because obviously as a Nebraska fan, I know the quarterback very well. Noah Vedral, he's a former Nebraska quarterback. He was decent, which is definitely better than what Rutgers had previously. They also get a couple of really big-time transfers. And so I picked Rutgers to win the game. I think they might actually win 2 or 3 conference games this year. I think they're going to make that much of an improvement under Greg Schiano in year 1. And so Michigan's going to have a pretty easy win against Michigan State this weekend. The Mal Tucker experiment not going off to the greatest start, but then again, Michigan State has some rebuilding to do, and I don't think they're going to be great this year. I think they will be the bottom team in the Big Ten East.
Agreed.
So, with that being said, we both have Florida at number 9. I think the reason is obvious. Their offense is outstanding. The defense leaves a lot to be desired. And they've been off the last couple weeks because of some COVID issues. I'm really excited to see how they play this weekend. I believe they have Missouri. And Missouri's kind of legit this year. I think they're one of those teams that's flying under the radar. It'll be interesting to see how they play. So, next up at 10, you have Texas A&M, and I have Wisconsin. Do you want to explain your pick of Texas A&M? And then I'll explain my pick of Wisconsin.
Okay, so A&M, like we kind of went off the my AP kind of win or lose type system. A&M just slightly moved up. Still a really good team. My Wisconsin's coming up as well, but due to a very serious loss that they're going to have, I just decided, even though their win was really, really good, I decided to not put them in the top 10 yet. But A&M just kind of slightly moving up. Did they have a bye? I can't recall if they played. Let me check. But
I believe
yeah,
they
A&M
had a bye week because Arkansas is having a couple of issues.
Yeah, it got moved. The Arkansas game got moved. So really eager to see how A&M fares. But I still think they're a really good team, and I think I'm not quite sure if they're top 10 worthy, but they kind of just slipped in. So that is where A&M is for me.
Yeah, I have A&M just outside my top 10 because they did beat Florida. That was pretty impressive. But other than that, they've looked very mediocre to me. And this is 2020, where if you're mediocre and you can still win, that can get you in the top 10. So, I'm okay with your positioning of A&M. I have them at essentially 12th. I have Wisconsin at 10. I think the reason for that is fairly obvious. They had an impressive win against Illinois. They beat them 45-7. And the only way Illinois scored was off of a pick six. So if it wasn't for that pick six, Illinois probably gets shut out by Wisconsin. Wisconsin found a quarterback. There was obviously the question of how good was Graham Mertz was going to be. He's amazing. He actually tied school history record for the best pass completion average in his first game. So that's really impressive. He's going to be good. Obviously, he had a positive test. We're going to find out here very soon if it was a false positive or if the positive was real. If the positive is real, I'm even more confident in my pick that Nebraska is going to upset them this weekend. I really like what I saw out of this Nebraska team in week 1. They looked ready to play, and I think there's a good chance that they beat Wisconsin this weekend. Obviously, I'll do a full preview and prediction video for that, but Wisconsin, they are legit. Obviously, without Graham Mertz, I don't even know who the tertiary quarterback is. Some name guy that probably only 15 Wisconsin Badger fans have ever heard of before. But they should still probably do fairly decently, I suspect, if that they are starting the backup, that he will most likely just hand the ball off, which obviously, if Nebraska's defense plays like they did last week, they're going to be able to stuff that. But yeah, Wisconsin still deserves to be up here because they did have an impressive win against Illinois. So we have our first teams out, and I have BYU as my number 11. And you want to explain why we have BYU in our top 10, or in my case, just outside the top 10?
They've looked really good. There's no doubt about it. They thumped Texas State, right?
Yep.
52-14. They're still looking good. That was definitely a bounce back from kind of the struggle bus. Yeah, that was like 3 weeks ago now, but it was kind of the struggle bus. But they have definitely bounced back. They got Western Kentucky at 9:15 at home. That's Mountain Time, so that's a little more, makes more sense. It kind of confused me. These Group 5 teams sometimes do these odd times. So, but anyways, Boise State's it. If they can beat Boise State, they're going to be probably the second best team in the Group of 5. I would have to say, depending on what SMU finishes off. But yeah, if they go undefeated, no doubt they finish in the top 10 for sure. But really eager to see how they finish the year and how they keep playing, and see if this offense keeps putting up points besides the struggle bus, 27-20.
Yeah, I think BYU actually is for real. They beat a decent Houston team pretty convincingly the week before. I really like this BYU team. Hopefully, this can springboard them to a good future, and I would really like to see BYU join a conference. Maybe a reformed Pac-12 if that sort of thing happens. But BYU's good.
Really eager to see when the next conference realignment's going to be. It's been years.
Yeah, it's going to be within the next, I think, 3 to 4 years. Okay, so with that being said, we both have North Carolina on false teams out. I think the reason is obvious.
They bounced back.
Yeah. So North Carolina, they had the embarrassing loss to Florida State, and that does turn out.
Embarrassing.
And that does turn out it was just simply a flat-out embarrassing loss because Florida State then just goes out the following week and just gets destroyed by, I don't even remember who it was they played.
I'm going to have to tell you, just brace because it's going to be bad.
Yeah.
Louisville, that's a little better than what it could have been, but I mean, 48-16 is not good.
Yeah. So North Carolina had an embarrassing loss, but other than that, they did come out and humiliate NC State, which is a decent team this year. And North Carolina, I think they are good. I think their main issues, though, have been the slow starts. They failed to
That's
capitalize.
what screwed them in the Florida State game. You
Yeah.
can't just come back and try to win every game. It's not going to work.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to pull off some miracle wins if you do that, but you're not going to win all your games. You're going to drop some games. So North Carolina, I think where they are right now is probably where they belong to be. I think they need to tighten some things up, and then they can come back for a really solid 2021. But I mean, the hype for this team was somewhat dissolved as we saw this year. But then again, they did lose to Florida State.
And I mean, who knows? Because if they don't look ahead, they take care of business versus Virginia and Duke and Wake. They get Notre Dame and Miami back to back. If they could maybe go win one of those games, who knows? But, you know.
Yeah. And then you have Miami, speaking of Miami, here in your top 10. You have them at 11. Obviously, the reasons for that is they've looked great offensively. They kind
of had the struggle bus this week versus Virginia, but, I mean, their defense, I think, is kind of at least average, so.
Yeah, Virginia's defense is actually pretty good. Bit underrated, but, I mean, Miami should have blown them out. I think where you have them is about right. I didn't have them in here because I wanted to highlight 2 group of 5 teams this week.
You know, I would recommend if you just want to highlight teams to make it honorable mentions or highlight section opposed to your top 15, but
yeah,
just my opinion.
I do actually really like Coastal Carolina, so I explained why I picked Coastal Carolina last week. They again came out, dominated whoever the no-name school was they played this week. Coastal Carolina's great. I think they deserve to be in the top 15.
I thought that Coastal Carolina actually played a decent team this week. Let me check if my internet or my ESPN would work. GSA, Georgia Southern. They're not a big team, but I mean, it's kind of just one I noticed. But yeah, you're correct.
Yeah, I think Coastal Carolina deserves to be in the top 15, so I don't just have them here because I want to highlight them. I think they actually deserve the spot. They're one of only 4 decent group of 5 teams that have played multiple games that are undefeated. We're not including Mountain West yet because they've only played 1 game each. It doesn't really matter yet. Liberty, I have Liberty at number 15. I might drop them depending on how they do, but Liberty has a chance to be a legit top 10 team. They're currently 6-0. So they have played a bunch of nobodies. They are literally a Sunday school, but they have been playing some decent football recently, and they will have chances later in the year when they play Virginia Tech and a couple of ACC teams to prove if they are a legit team. But I wanted to highlight them this week because I actually really like them, and I think they have a legit chance to be a top 10 team. I'm just not exactly sore on them.
Agree.
So, you have Indiana at 14, Penn State 15. I dropped Penn State out.
Thinking about doing it twice, I'd probably put Michigan at 15 now that I really think about it, but yes.
Yeah.
Those 3 in the 14, 15, 16.
But I mean, obviously, we'll get to change our picks for next week. And obviously, This is still just the first week of Big Ten football. A lot's going to change in the next 1 to 2 weeks. And I think you put Penn State at 15 is fair. I just dropped them out because I really did not like all the mistakes they made against Indiana. Obviously, you have Indiana at 14. I think that's fair. Indiana's better than Penn State, at least in that game. However, that game was a bit of a fluke. Obviously, it had maybe one of the most insane finishes we've ever seen in a college football game, right up there with the kick 6 and a few other famous ones. That 2-point conversion was the craziest 2-point conversion that I've ever seen. I do.
Did you think it should have counted?
Yeah, I do think the officials got the call correct.
Because it seemed like the ball touched at like literally the inch yard line, but at the same time as the ball came down, it's like it hit the orange pylon. So it was beyond hard to tell. But honestly, I mean, either way, I'm not going to be mad about how they call that. But Indiana gets the benefit.
I think the nose of the football just crossed the white line.
You have to
Just
give it
before
to
it
the
touched.
Indiana coach for going it too. I highly agree with that call. Just go out. It's 2020. Go try to do it.
I also want to thank the Indiana safety for not tackling the Penn State running back as he was heading into the end zone, because that set them up to be able to go score a touchdown to turn it into an overtime game. So, shout out to him. But I just want to go some stats with this game real quick, because really, if we look at the stats and nothing else, Penn State sort of destroyed Indiana. I'll give you an example. Time of possession. Penn State had the ball for more than 40 minutes. Indiana only had the ball for 19 minutes in the game. Penn State had 3 times more running yards and rushing yards than Indiana did. Indiana, though, was +1 in the turnover rating, which is really important, and Penn State missed 3 field goals, which is a big deal. So what we're looking at some of these stats is, I mean, you also look at passing yards. Penn State destroyed Indiana. Like almost every single stat, except for 2 very important ones, missed field goals and turnover margin, were the big difference in this game. Penn State shot themselves in the foot too many times to count. It's almost as if they were trying to lose the game. Now, obviously, a lot of this is because of week 1 rustiness. Penn State is a legit team, I think, this year. We're not going to find that out till next week, maybe. I think they're going to be embarrassed by Ohio State this year and this week. But Penn State...
If they miss 3 field goals, it's going to be like 55-3.
Yeah. And the thing is, Penn State really dominated the game in every stat except playing a clean game. Obviously, Indiana had their own turnover. They didn't play a perfect game, but they played a more mistake-free ball game, and usually the team that makes less mistakes wins the game, and that's exactly what we saw here. Plus, I also have bought into Indiana. After I was very impressed by Indiana's performance against Nebraska last year, that's when I started paying attention and being like, oh, this team could be for real. And so I have bought the Indiana hype train. They will most likely be in my first teams out next week. I'll just have to see how they perform. I believe they get Maryland or Rutgers this weekend.
I'll confirm. How about Rutgers?
That's going to be an easy win.
One could hope.
Yeah. Unless Rutgers is absolutely amazing, suddenly dominates everybody. So, I mean, we'll just have to see how Indiana is. I do believe they're for real, though. So, I think your positioning there of Indiana, essentially at 14th, was fairly legit.
Yeah, I would probably put Michigan at 15th, like I said. But it was kind of like the first team that came to my mind. They're still good, don't get me wrong. Penn State is still good, but like you really got at, they really just screwed up too many times. And that happens to good teams. It really does. OU. But anyways.
So, I wanted to thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed doing this. It's an honor. Thank you so very much.
You're welcome. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. We're gonna have a preview and predictions for the Wisconsin-Nebraska game, and then maybe the two of us can come on later in the week for a preview and predictions of what we think some of the best games of the week will be, and we'll give our quick hitters predictions on that. So, with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your day. God bless.